Hi, this is Hatim Kheir, counsel for the Justice Center for Constitutional Freedoms, with your update for Day 24 of the Public Order Emergency Commission hearings. Today we heard from three witnesses. We heard from first from John Azowski, who's the president of the Canadian Border Services Agency, and then we heard from a panel of two witnesses from Transport Canada. There was the Deputy Minister, Michael Keenan, and the top economist, Christian Day. Some of the highlights from Mr. Azowski's testimony. First of all, he discussed the role of using emergency powers, which are granted under the Emergencies Act, to turn away people at the border who are suspected for coming into the country. Suspected to come into the country to participate in the protests. However, under cross-examination, he answered that they did have the power prior to the invocation of the Emergencies Act to turn away anyone who is coming to engage in unlawful activity. And in both cases, border agents would face the difficulty of knowing why a person was coming in. However, while he was being cross-examined on that topic, he agreed that the protests were not illegal until the Emergencies Act made them so. Another highlight that stood out to me was that there was, and this came out from Commission Counsel's examination, was that there were updates provided by the CBSA, which throughout the whole protest stated that the overall threat was low. And then on the 14th, the day the Emergencies Act is invoked, not even in the morning update, but only in the afternoon update, there's a note that gets added that the protests could pose a threat to economic security, which mirrors the language used to justify the invocation of emergency. Commission Counsel put it to Mr. Azowski that this was potentially added to essentially mirror government talking points and support their invocation of emergency. He stated that he did not believe that to be the case, though he didn't have specific knowledge about the motivation for adding the note. Likewise, there was another document where they include something called a bluff, a bottom line up front, and throughout the whole convoy it had stated that the threat was low. But then on February 15th, there was a note added that they must be cautious due to the threat of IMVE, which is ideologically motivated violent extremism. Again, language that is in line with the government's purported justification for the use of Emergencies Act, but only came in when that was now an issue that needed to be justified. Lastly, he did clarify that the emergency powers that had the potential to turn people away at the border were only used once. It was used to deny a couple that was coming in to participate in the protest. The other pair of witnesses we heard from were from Transport Canada, like I said. A couple highlights that came out from their testimony. One was that they were shown a document by Brendan Miller from StatsCan that seems to contradict what Mr. Day was saying, that there was a heavy impact to the economy of Canada. Based on StatsCan's assessment, where they were looking at the actual data, they determined that because most traffic was getting diverted to other points of entry, the overall impact on the movement of goods through the border from the US to Canada was actually very little. They also discussed the use of the emergency power to obtain tow trucks. Essentially, it turned out that Transport Canada wasn't actually aware that the OPP had already successfully obtained tow trucks before the Emergencies Act was invoked. Though, to be fair, Mr. Keenan insisted that he thought the power was helpful in that regard because Transport Canada had tried for 10 days to obtain tow trucks and determined the task was impossible in their estimation. That's the that's the update for today. Please tune in tomorrow for another update on the work of the public inquiry hearings. Thanks, and talk to you then.